So welcome everyone to the 7th of the Riichi Nomi New York City guest lectures. So welcome back. I think everyone here is a returning visitor, but also anyone who this is their first time coming. We're finally at the penultimate lecture of our series. I don't know if you can all believe it. And this week and the next week, our last 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about some more defensive topics, starting with today's push-pull decision-making with Steve. So this week, we're going to be sticking with our usual lecture format. So our lecturer, Steve, is going to be screen sharing his slide deck and going through this content. So we're going to ask if you can please keep yourself on mute unless you'd like to chime in and contribute to a question, or you're called upon to answer a question by Steve. So you'll be able to see in the lecture participation channel, we're using our bot to join a list to answer questions. So you can type kind of ampersands join to be added to the list to participate. And then you can ampersand leave if you're suddenly no longer available to leave at any time. And people will be picked from that list to weigh in on questions. Now, you won't be cold called to talk unless you add to the list there, but it is more fun when everybody chimes in, so please do. Finally, as always, with our Riichi Nomi behavior guidelines, absolutely no hateful or rude comments will be tolerated in voice or in chat at all. We're all friends here. We're going to act like it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Now, so that others can enjoy these lectures later, they will be recorded and posted up on the Riichi Nomi YouTube channel, including any audience participation. So that video should go up sometime in the next couple weeks, and we'll link it out when it does. All right. So without any further ado, let's get started. I'm going to introduce our lecturer tonight, who is Steve. So Steve is the organizer for Southeast Michigan Riichi, who's been playing off and on for 15 years when he first learned Mahjong during his study abroad to Waseda University in 2005. He moved to Ann Arbor in 2011 and has been part of the group there since, gradually taking on a greater leadership role. He started playing competitively in 2018, where his first 2-day open was diving right into the deep end with the NAO. As a fun fact about Steve, just to augment that, he does play a variety of different instruments. He can play with proficiency piano, clarinet, flute, saxophone, oboe, a variety of Renaissance instruments, and the ocarina, of which he owns 4, and he will also teach us about push-pull decision-making. So he's a regular Renaissance man. I hope we all enjoy this lecture, and Steve, I'm going to pass it off to you now to get started.
All right, great. Thank you for that introduction. To start off with warning some folks here that this is a pretty dense topic. Push-pull decisions is one of the kind of most hotly contested and complicated topics in all of Mahjong, and there's going to be a lot of tables and a little bit of math along the way, and I don't want to scare anyone away with that because nobody really does the math on the fly. You learn the patterns and you learn the intuition and you apply it. So with that in mind, let's get started. So first thing I want to talk about is just an intro to what expected value is. And that's kind of most of your digital online push-pull decisions will be based around your EV of that decision. So what the heck is EV anyway? Well, EV is a stats-driven digital view of all your push-pull. It's important that when you calculate the EV, you remember that you never actually win the EV value. It's going to be an average of not winning, dealing in, winning, it going to the exhaustive draw, and that's all averaged out. And that's what the next point is. It's really a sum of all the outcomes multiplied by their own probabilities. And whenever you want to make a push-fold decision, you should compare the EV of your hand when you push to the EV of folding it. So I'm going to give a simplified example of EV here with this hand. We have a tenpai, and for this EV example, we're going to assume we win with Dama and we win with Nodora. So I'd actually like to get started with some audience participation right away because this is going to be kind of dense in places. So can we get someone to be called upon to give me an idea of what the scores and values of this hand are?
I just got on. I had food. What was the question? My bad. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. What was the question? I literally just put my headphones on and saw that I was called on. Okay.
Yes, we want to score this hand with its different weights. Like, what is the hand weighting on, and what do you win if you win with sumo or ron?
Tanyo Pinfu Sanshoku is, Tanyo Pinfu for all of the different weights here, because we are waiting on Ryanso, Uso, and Paso here. If we get the, if we get the Tuso, we will also have Sanshoku, so we're going to have Tanyo Pinfu. We'll also have Sanshoku, which will put us at 77 or 11,600 if we're dealer or not. So basically a Mongon, and then the sumo will basically make it a Mongon as well. Otherwise, we'll just have Tanyo Pinfu. Let me think if there's anything else that I'm missing here. No. Did I miss anything?
So far, so good.
Okay. Yeah, so and then if we get the 8, so as well as it will also be just Tanyo Pinfu. That makes sense. Yeah, which will be about like 2,000, but we could reach if we wanted to as well.
We're assuming Dama, we could reach.
Oh, Dama? Okay, so then that should do it. I think that's it. I hope I haven't missed anything.
That's right. So you're totally correct. You win with the 2 or the 5, so you get Tanyo Pinfu, Sanshoku, and that's correct. The 8, so if you win on sumo, it's going to be 2,700. It's going to be 700.
Oh, I forgot to say that, yeah.
But you're correct. So when we want to calculate the EV of just the win, the tiles are remaining. There are 11 tiles left because we hold 1 5-so already. And if we're Dama, we're going to just assume, for the sake of this example, that everyone has an equal chance of winning or of dealing in, and you have an equal chance of sumoing. So we have a 25% chance of sumo and a 75% chance to ron. So the EV of the win is this wonderful thing. It's the score of each multiplied by its number of available tiles, multiplied by the probability of sumo or ron, summed up divided by the number of tiles remaining. And so the EV of the hand, if you win, is 5,739. So like I said, you never win the EV value. You just, that's the expected value of the hand. It's an average. So in short, when you look at EV of push-fold decisions, it's a lot more complicated than just that example, because you have to take into account all of your outcomes when you choose to push. And you can take into account dealing in now or dealing in later, which is a big negative. Winning the hand, which is a big positive. You obviously gain points. That's the goal. If any other player sumos, that's a smaller negative than just dealing straight in. If someone else runs, it's neutral, but if you reach it, you lose the 1,000 points. And going to Ryukyoku, where if you push, you're in Tenpai, it's going to be positive, but it's possible still for that to even be negative if all 4 players are in Tenpai and you reach it, because then the 1,000 points goes into the next round. But it's important to remember that folding is going to almost always be negative EV. You're going to lose points at the end of the round when you're not in Tenpai, and that goes between 1,000 to 3,000 points. So the EV of a fold is usually 1,500 to 2,000, depending on what's going on, negative. But remember, it can be positive. I mean, you have to find your way back into Tenpai, luckily, safely, and remain there until the end of the round. Or if someone else runs and you didn't reach it, then because you folded, you don't lose anything. So there's situations where it can be neutral, but it's going to be negative if it goes all the way to the end. So in light of all this math, you may be asking why the EV is important, and it kind of just focuses on the long game. When you choose to make a choice based on EV, you're going to deal in sometimes. You're going to win sometimes. But if you continue to make the right choice over folding, over the long term, you're going to continue to rise in ladders and leagues. For tournaments, it can even be especially important in early Hanchan in a tournament and early in any specific Hanchan while the scores are closer to flat to make the correct choices. But as it gets later in any game, whether it's ladder or tournament or whatever, you might want to choose a poor EV scenario because you're either in last on ladder and you want to win at any cost to get out of last, or you have a huge lead and you can fold and you don't care what the other players do. It might not be You might have a good hand that's positive EV to push it, but if you have a huge lead, you can just fold anyway, depending on what's going on. And it's important to realize that this is still an average. I've said that multiple times, and it's really important to realize you look up the EV in a table, it's going to be some random number in the middle, close to zero, maybe slightly positive, maybe a lot positive, but you're not ever going to win that value. And you need to play to your win conditions. So if you're playing in that fourth place punishing ladder, like Tenho, even Mahjong is pretty punishing of fourth place, you don't really care about third. It depends on where you're at. I know at Master 1, when I was playing to rank up, that the third was nothing compared to a second. The second was a lot more. You might push less than what EV would dictate just to protect yourself from dealing in, and you're less likely to win because you give the person who's pushed first another chance. But if you're not in last, you don't want to take that risk, and it leads to more second and third place. But as we all know in Tenho, if you get only seconds and thirds, you'll rank up eventually. But in tournament games, or games with Oka, where the first place gets an extra boost of points, first place means a whole lot more, and then you might want to roll the dice and push on a negative EV, where it's the same as folding or just slightly over folding, and that will lead to more first places and more fourth places depending on what happens. So when you're going to push, when it's time to push, your tenpai, somebody else is Riichi, somebody else is tenpai, what you are pushing really matters. And a lot of the subject matter from here up to a certain point in the presentation comes from Fukuchi's book on Mahjong strategy, push fold, and that. And I can provide a link to that in English translation. I was working from the Japanese here, but I can provide the English translation afterward. Anyone's interested, feel free to message me. But this is Fukuchi's ranking of safety of tiles. So he gives rankings from S grade all the way down to F, failing. And in order, their Genbutsu has no chance of dealing in. We know this. The Tanki Honor, I say 2 out, but literally you can see all but one of them. So you have them. I say you might want to fold from an Anko. Well, that Tanki Honor, you have the triplet. It has a 0.9% chance of dealing in on average. Then it goes down from there. There's nothing at A grade. I think Fukuchi left this in to kind of make a delineation between this level and the next. Everything else is markedly more dangerous, and it just gets worse as you go down the table. So we've got Suji 1 or 9. For those not familiar with the term Suji, that's if like a 4 is out in the Riichi. That means they can't be on a 1-4 weight or their free 10. So that makes the 1 a lot safer. And then we've got the not Tanki Honor. There's more available, so they could have a pair. Suji 2 or 8, 3 or 7, and then Musuji is another term meaning, it basically means no Suji, but a better English translation is a live Suji. Like we don't see any part of it, so it's more dangerous. We move down to a half Suji, and when we're in the E grade now, we see these have on an average a 6 to 7% chance to deal in, and all the way down to the bottom of the F grade being the Musuji 4, 5, or 6, and those are just bad because they're in their middle tiles. They can be finish hands in a number of ways, and average chance to deal in when you push one of those is 12%. So it's pretty bad when you have to push one of those, and your requirements to push your hand are going to be more steep. So this may seem kind of complex, but one of the ways you can approximate your chance to deal in when you need to push is by counting the Suji. And counting what Suji are live. And the 4, 5, and 6 Musuji, because they, like a 4 deals into 1, 4 or 4, 7, are a lot more likely to deal in, and they get a safety rating of F from Fukuchi, so they fail. Early on, when there are many live Suji, you can push more things because there are more options. Like you want to push this 2, and there are several live Suji, it has a smaller chance of dealing in than later in the game when the Riichi has discarded more tiles, more Suji die, basically. And it gets pretty bad at the end. If you have a hand, this is an example, if you have a hand where you have only 3 Suji remaining, and it's like 2, 5, 8 is one of those Sujis, and you deal that 5, you have like a 30% chance to deal in right there. So it gets pretty nasty statistically at the end when you when there are very few Suji remaining. So we're going to...
Before you move on, can I pass on a few questions from the chat? One question we have here is from Aaron Lyde, who had a question about the chart that you pulled up, assuming that the percentages are per discard. Is that right?
There's a large table I can share later that shows the average deal-in rate of these tiles based on whether they're half suji or no suji on each turn as well. That was a little too much for this slide deck, and it's basically way too big to fit on one slide, and it probably wouldn't even fit on two. But you can see how at the beginning of a hand, when there are so many live suji, or how many suji are live, it's earlier, more suji are going to be live, and the chance to deal in is much smaller. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse the later you get, and more suji die.
So the percentage is per discard. We have another question in the chat here from an anonymous person who's really bad at math, who says, how am I supposed to do all this math mid-game, or how am I supposed to use the EV if not like that? I think that's in regards to the EV and the calculations you were doing previously.
No one's expected to do math like that on the fly. I mean, you have to use the equation editor, and what happens is after you study these tables, and you should know the value of your own hand, of course. And later on in the presentation, we'll be going over kind of the average value of Riichi, so you can use that to your advantage and weigh your weight, what you have to push, and the value of your own hand against the average value of the hand you're pushing against. And then you'll be able to make a decision on whether to push or not. It becomes intuitive after a while, and you'll learn patterns from this.
Got it. Thank you.
Back to where we were, I wanted to call on someone to, this was originally going to be a push-fold question, but looking at it, I decided it was just too much hella push. Basically, you have to push this. Because I'm in last here. This is from one of my own games, and it's just a great hand. Too much value to fold, and we're pushing a suji tile, so it's fine. But I was going to call on someone to count, if they can. It might take a minute. The number of live suji to this Riichi.
All right. The bot has selected Point Alex W to answer this question.
Sure. Are we counting specifically just the suji for the Riichi player?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start suit by suit. Starting with Pinzu, since only the one pin has been discarded, then both the 4 and 7 are still alive. 2-5 has been dropped, so 2-5-8 is not live. And 3-6-9 are still alive. I don't know how you're counting these, if it's by per number or not.
For this one, I would suggest counting the suji that are dead, because a lot of things are still live.
Okay. So 2-5-8 Pinzu. 1-4-7 so, and 2-5-8 so, as well as all of the Manzu. Wait, I need to look at the other discards. Yes.
This is the Ipatsu turn, so the other discards really don't matter. So
yes, it is those. 4-7 pin, 3-6-9 pin, 2-5-8 so, 1-4-7 so, and all of the Manzu.
You got it. I'm going to reveal the answer here. Yeah, there's a lot of live suji here. It is all the Manzu. You have it exactly right. There are essentially only 5 dead suji here. 1-4 pin, 2-5-8, which is 2 different suji, and then 3-6-9 so are all dead. So essentially what that means is with this hand, I'm pushing a suji tile anyway, so I don't really worry about it. But if I had to push a not suji tile, because there are so many live suji, it doesn't have as great of a chance of dealing into one of these two-sided weights. So I'm pushing this anyway. Even if I have to push a 5-mon, I'm pushing this anyway in the current situation. So thank you. And we've got one more live suji here. This time the Riichi is me. I'm from this perspective, I'm the Shimocha here. And I'd like to call on someone else to tell me what suji are still live.
Our friend Blue has been called upon to answer this. Blue, if you'd like to take this one.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. I got a hard one because I can't tell what the calls happened. Yeah, actually, that's fine. Let's see. Sorry for the brief dead air while I calculate all this. Two, four. Let's see. Looks
So much
like
better to focus on the suji that are alive because a lot of them are dead. I'll give you that.
yeah. Looks like oh no, that was dead too. This is actually not my strongest suit. Let's see. Looks like 6-9 and so is still alive, if I am counting everything correctly. And then is that one it?
Oh,
Did I miss Mon entirely?
it took me a long time to figure this out.
258 Mon is also live, it looks like. If I'm yeah, I think so.
You're missing one, but do you want me to move ahead, or do you want to find it?
What was the first one I listed again?
Listed 6-9 so, and then 258 Mon. Those are all right.
258 Mons. See, I see 6 in his discard, which means that one's dead. 4-7's dead. Spin's dead. Yeah, I'm missing it. I can't see it at this point.
Okay. I'll go ahead. There are 4 live cities. 4-7 so is still live.
4-7.
Unless I missed it, which is possible. I spent a little time looking at this one. So I think there's 4 live Suji here. Like you said 6-9 is live. 6-9 looks really bad against this Riichi because it's also around the Dora.
Yep.
2 Dora. 258 has not come out. And then 4-7 is still live here. I don't see any of those. So with 4 live Suji, that's where if you deal any one of those tiles, you're in a world of hurt, but also you need to start worrying about what might the weight be if it's not Ryanmen at that point, because you're starting to run out of options. So thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Steve, we have a question on this one from Aaron Light in the chat asking if there's a difference in danger for tiles around the Condora versus the original Dora.
That would depend. This is my opinion on the answer, so I'm not giving a rock solid answer here. But I think that would depend on whether the con happened before the reach. I think there's less danger around the Condora because you have less time to plan around the Condora, unless the con happens on turn 1. Does that make sense?
Yes, and Aaron Light said thank you in the chat.
Now we're getting into the real bulk of this, where we want to figure out whether we should push or fold against a Riichi. And it's important to note that this again is an average, but the average value of Riichi and Akaari, meaning having red 5s in the game, is 7,000 for a non-dealer and 9,800 for the dealer. Again, average. We don't actually ever win these values. And if you're playing Akanashi, as in if you're playing Riichi Out League, these values are going to decrease by about 15%. So it drops to 6,000-ish for the non-dealer and in the mid 7,000s for the dealer. So we're going to go into the details on this, but whether to push against a Riichi from Tenpai, and from Tenpai is important, or not, depends on the value of your hand, what tile you have to cut to chase, whether it be Riichi or Dama, how late it is in the round, and whether we are dealer or whether the Riichi is dealer. And from the purely EV perspective, that's all that goes into it. But you can obviously make reads on the board. You can track where the Doras are and do a bunch of other things that will be used to make more informed plays. Like, say, if you had a lead, you might not want to push, or if you're in last, you need to push anyway. And that's not taken into account by EV because it's purely mathematical. So this is me trying to boil down the Fukuchi steps and how to push into a table. It is not the most simple thing. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this so everyone understands what's going on. Any questions, feel free to ask. And hopefully, Claire, you can just interrupt me on this if somebody asks a question. So
Will do.
We have the position you're in, whether you're a dealer, non-dealer, or whether the Riichi is the dealer or the non-dealer. And then I've color-coded the push tile, meaning if it's green, you can basically push almost anything. And the reason I say almost anything is I've highlighted our F friends in green, but Fukuchi kind of defines F grade as anything over 10% deal-in rate. So we go back to that average. The middle tiles that are completely live have a 12% chance of dealing in, so they'd be F. But if it's like 4 turns from the end and 3/4 of the suji are dead, and that's still completely live, you might want to think again because it's got like a 25% chance to deal in at that point. So he didn't really go into the detail on what to do if the deal-in rate is that high. I think you need to have quite a bit of value. So, and then yellow and red designate when your tile needs to be safer. And you'll notice for the values we have listed here that the D is the worst thing. So if I reference back to that table, a C was like a 1 out only honor, or like a Suji 1 or 9, I believe, were like C grade. So things that people are pretty comfortable pushing, but even the Suji 2, 8, 5, 2, 8 and like 3, 3, 7, because they can deal into Penchon, have a higher deal-in rate than the other things around them. Penchon being an end weight, like 1, 2 mon waiting on 3 mon. So it's going to be a little more dangerous to push those. So, and when we see red, we need either a good weight with some value or just a lot of value to really be able to push. And then in the notes, you'll notice it will say, if you have this situation, don't push 1 han, don't push 1 han open. If it says it's flat, that will be where your EV is like equal to folding. So you're rolling the dice there. If you need more points and you need to win, you should go for it. If you want to be more cautious because you don't want to be in last, you shouldn't do it. And then there's a couple boxes that look like have a dot in them. It's really a star. And those are marked by Fukuchi as having, like, it's too early to have a lot of defensive options. So it's okay to push with something cheap and reevaluate later. You can get unfortunate and deal in. It's going to happen. We've all had it happen where somebody reaches on turn 2 and we've got nothing safe and we deal in Ipatsu, trying to select the best tile. So that will happen and we can't avoid it. But you can try to push something cheap and then reevaluate on later draws as more things become Genbutsu. So to kind of boil down what this is saying is the dealer can push a lot of things. The dealer has its Renchan, is valuing being able to deal again and valuing the extra win they get. And if the dealer has a good weight and they're second to Riichi, then they can push almost anything. And this is according to Fukuchi. You should just attack if you have an open weight and you're the dealer. So you can even Riichi Nomi against a lot of things. So some people might disagree. You might have a lead. You want to take caution. That's up to the read on the board and not the EV. And then later on, if your weight is bad, and I'm defining bad here, I think he defines bad as 4 tiles or less. So we're looking at Kanchan, or if you have a round man weight, most of it's dead, something like that. And in the late game, the dealer wants to have a 3,900 point Riichi, so basically 2 and 40 Riichi for the dealer, to be able to push an E grade tile, which is something having around a 7% deal-in rate. And then this pattern continues, and I'm not going to like go through every line because this will take forever, but you'll notice that as we go down the chart, because we're fighting as not the dealer, so we have less advantage, and then we're fighting the dealer towards the bottom where we have a disadvantage, where if you have a late bad weight and you need to push an E grade tile, he doesn't even go into F. It's like if you have to push F, you shouldn't even be doing it unless you have to win or you've got a lot of value. But to push that E grade safety tile in late game against the dealer, you need to have a Magan. So, and that's and then basically 5,200 or 3,900 with a Riichi is kind of like flat, and you will lose about the same amount as you would if you fold on average. So But these are his guidelines. Before I move on, I don't want to just leave this behind and feel I've made it, like, just glossed over it, because it's very important. Are there any questions?
We have some questions in the chat. We have one from Kevin and Rita Shower. Why are there two choices for dealer to non-dealer in the mid-game category?
Fukuchi here is specifying that if you want to push any value, you can push an E grade tile that's not, like, except for like one Han. Like you can have one Han with Riichi. Basically his one Han is like, don't push the one Han open if you're going to push E grade. But if you have 3,900 points value, then you can push anything. So that's why there's two options. He's kind of making like stepwise stuff. If you have this much value, you can push this danger level. But if you have more value, you can push something more dangerous.
Kevin says, okay, thanks. We also have another question in the chat from Scott. Question, when someone double Riichis or second turn Riichis, is it best to play the hand or just fold the hand to play defense?
That's a difficult question. I'm going to kind of quote an anecdote I've heard from a friend who's met and been able to play with Moriyama, the Moriyama Pro, the president of the JPML, who just swears by, if there's a double Riichi, you attack it. You can't really fold. You don't know what the weight is. It could be anything. So later on, if you don't make any progress and it's looking ugly, then fold. But at first, you have no choice pretty much but to attack it, unless your hand is garbage and you have a Genbutsu on the first turn.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Steve.
Moving on, these are kind of the basic takeaways from this push-fold discussion. I know it's kind of complicated, but I'm tried to boil down the concepts here in a way that hopefully everyone can take something from. And the first one is, because folding is negative EV, you can push with a large variety of hands, including Riichi Nomi if the weight is good in many cases. Because you need to remember that even if the decision is negative EV, like you'll lose on average, it might still be the right choice if it's less negative than if you fold. So that's kind of a takeaway. Like the EV from folding is, like I said, minus 1,500-ish. If you have a minus 500 average on this hand, it's still better to push it. So, and then pushing against the dealer is obviously much more strict, and for good reason, because if you deal into the dealer and it's a valuable hand, that kind of ruins your game. You have to get some good hands, good luck to pull yourself out. And the last one, I stressed earlier about pushing from Tenpai. If you're pushing from Ishanten, it's kind of like a world of difference. It should not be done most of the time. And there's certain ways you can push it. I mean, you have to, if you have to push because you're in last, of course, I keep bringing that up. If you're in last and you need to push, then go ahead and push. But if you're in Ishanten, you either have to get lucky and just draw safe tiles, Genbutsu, like B grade or better safety, and then you don't have to fold. You can just keep forging ahead. Also, you could have like a Chinitsu Ishanten or something that's Mangan or better that will lead to a good weight. Or if you just have fewer than 2 safe tiles, it's kind of back to the stars on our chart, or double Riichi for that matter, and you'll likely just run out of safety. Then you may as well push, because if you're going to run out and if you try to fold and you still deal in, that's the worst thing. Because you've taken away your chance to win, and you've tried to fold, and you've dealt in. So that's like the worst outcome that can possibly happen. So we're into the audience participation portion of this. There's going to be several examples that I'm going to run through. I'll give a kind of a guideline on what's going to happen here, but for each one. But I want everyone to keep in mind not just EV, because we don't want to think about just EV. Use the board, use your brain. Think about the score, what other players are doing if they're not folding, and the Ipatsu turn does matter, but the EV takes this into account because it's an average. So use your best judgment and determine whether you should push it or fold. All right, Claire, if you can call on someone, please.
All right, Amy from Riichi Nomi, New York City has been called upon to answer this question. Okay.
So I'd see.
I can give you a little detail that this is Akanashi. So
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we've reached Tenpai with a bad weight against a dealer that has called 3 times. And we're in first. Oh, and West has called Riichi. Okay. Let's see. We would need to push either the Dora or the Musuji 6-0 to maintain our Tenpai. And we have not a lot of value. Let's see. I guess I could try to look at the chart. Non-dealer versus non-dealer, bad weight.
you can also, if you want to just use your intuition, the chart is helpful.
Intuition, I don't really want to do it because we're in first place. And we have the 2 West that we can use as safe tiles. And like, we have the 3 Mon as well. Like, yeah, I wouldn't really want to because the dealer looks scary and we have to push either the Dora or like a live middle tile.
Okay, yeah, I agree. When I was playing this game, I did the same thing. I ended up pushing I folded with the 3-mon here. I didn't even want to push the West either because I don't see the other 2, and if the dealer has them, that's really bad. So those were not leaving anytime soon, but I ended up folding. So thank you. Anything else, Claire, before we go on?
Nope. Everyone in the chat agrees so far.
Examples in a row here, so we can just call on one person for each, please.
Great. So we have Mr. who's been selected for this one. Take us away, Mr.
Hey. Okay, this looks like a Tenho game.
This is Tenho ladder, yes.
Okay, sounds good. So there's Akka in this game. Looks like we hit Tempai. Well, yeah, we just hit Tempai on Riichi Tanyao probably, or we can take just the Riichi Nomi. Both of them are good weights. We are West. North has reached on the 9-pin. Dealer through 3-1, probably Shanten. South. Ooh, actually East is pushing with the 3-1. Okay. South called, but looks like they could be bailing or not. I mean, they're pushing safe tiles. Where it's basically a flat situation in South 1. Okay, if we were to push this, do we have any safe tiles to push? One chance. One chance is okay. For Tanyo, Dora. Oh, we have Dora. So it'll be around 2,000 points if we sumo. Assuming we don't reach 2,600 if we roam. We could reach here, but we would be on a bad weight on the 8-mon. Here I would. Oh, and I guess we should take a look at other save tiles that we have, which is not many, just the 3-pin, and the 1-chance 9-pin. Or 9-mon is our second best option, and the 6-pin, which is Nakasuji, I guess. Although Nakasuji on the reach tile. I think I would just. I would just Dama the 9-mon here. I think 1 chance is okay to throw out against non-dealer reach. I'm wary of dealer. Dealer, it looks like they're looking to push with a good Ryuan weight if they get there. So I don't like reaching here, especially since we still have a Yaku. So we can still win on the 5-8 mon here. We're just looking to end this and kind of just run away, I think, here.
I agree. I will admit this one. I asked a few friends for some input and screen capture, so I didn't have to comb through so many games to find situations like this. But looking at it for me, I agree. I think I would have tried the one chance 9 mon and just beat Dama. I wouldn't reach you that. The weight is bad. First of all, even though it's two-sided, you only have 4 tiles left, so it's equivalent to a kanchan. You have 3 5s and you have an 8. And if you reach that 8, if somebody else draws that 8, it's not coming out. They decide to push again. It's slightly interesting to Riichi, in my opinion, reaching with the 8 mon would be slightly interesting just to see if the 9 mon gets thrown, but I think that's more risk than I would want to assume.
I agree.
Is there anything in the chat that we want to cover from this before we move on?
There was one question about what one chance means, but I believe it was answered by others in the chat. There are 3 8 mon UC. So there's only 1 left for the Ryuan men.
Yes. That's correct. Thank you, chat, for helping me out there. This one's fun. We can have somebody called on.
So Pio has been selected. He's also the last person in the list, everyone, so if you want to go ahead and join up for your chance at these fun questions, please do so. Pio, you're up for this one, though.
So it's a pretty early Riichi. It's like, what, 5th discard Riichi by the dealer? And my choices... I mean, okay, so the choice is whether to yeet this Dora and go into Riichi, because if you Riichi on the 5-so and you're waiting on the Dora and you already have 2 of them, I think that's just wrong. So there's no way I'd do that. There's not a whole lot of safety, really, because there's a lot of just like a bunch of honors, and it is pretty early. I guess. I guess I Dora Reach. Ugh. It is pretty early. Gives the dealer less time to like make the Dora their weight. It is against dealer. But I think I would slam the Riichi button in this scenario.
I agree 100%. This is the question where the answer is yeet the Dora into the dealer's Ippatsu turn. You have Mangan good weight with Riichi. You have 6 tiles left, which is enough to fight the dealer, even when you have to throw a Dora. That's probably one of the things to remember. If it deals in, I'm screwed, but there is also counting. This is a counting suji question as well. There are only 3 dead suji. So, now said, there's not a lot of things I can do. If I want to be safe, I can throw the 6. So, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I slammed the button. I threw the Dora. It passed. Now PO for the record though. My next draw was another Dora.
Oh no!
I still won the hand, but it was...
yeah, that just feels bad though. Yeah.
Steve, we have a question in the chat. How much does them being Dora or other dangerous adjacent to the Riichi tile, for example, change the danger level of certain tiles?
That's a good point. I didn't work this into the presentation, but it is covered in Fukuchi's material where tiles near the Dora are about 20% more dangerous, not like 20 relative. So if you have a 7% deal-in rate, multiply that by 20%, so you end up with an extra like 1.4% chance to deal in. So it's up to 8.4. If it's the Dora itself, it should be regarded with almost double danger. I think the exact value is 1.7 he gives, so 70% more dangerous. Also by an EV basis, because if you deal in with a Dora, they're instantly getting one more hum to their hand value. That being said, in this case, I don't really see there's any other option. Yeah, when you're trying to fight off the first Riichi, you should always prioritize a good weight over a bad weight. That can be seen in the table where the requirements to push a good weight are so much less than pushing a bad weight.
Got it. Thanks, Steve.
All right, this is the next one provided by a friend. This is a Riichi out game on Tenho, so it's Akanashi. Can have a volunteer.
Mizder, you got picked again.
Fun. Awesome. Okay, so we're dealer. So it's Akanashi. We're Tenpai. We discard Dora. Here for Tanyo. Only. Unless we reach. South called. Reach on the 5-pin. So it's Epot's turn. We're in second. 2,500 roughly. 2,900. To first, East 4. So we should just focus on we shouldn't be worrying about placements. I should at least not at this point in the stage. What do we do? Save tiles. None really. This is very interesting.
I didn't want to choose easy ones, so.
Tanya Nomi. Don't think that's right. I don't think we want to throw out the door here. Just intuition here because we don't have good value in here. Although we don't have save tiles in the first place anyways. We have half suji if we want to take Ishanten and get the better weight. Ay. 556, or I guess 554 possibilities there. Hard for them to be, or I guess they're the copy on the 8, so there's technically half suji on the Dora here. Man.
I'll step in and let you know that the chat has kind of already figured this out, but the 8-pin is actually 100% safe because you can see every single 9. You're not going to deal into the Kanchan.
Oh, you're right.
You can deal into a Shabo or Tanki because you can see every single 8.
You're right.
The only way to wait on the 8 is to be free 10 on it.
You're right.
Would have similar.
That makes complete sense. Okay. Well, then 8 seems reasonable here, even though I go back to Rian Shanten, which probably we can still get back to Tenpai here. It's not too bad. Man, I don't know if I want to go back to Rian Shanten, but I guess we could do it since 8-pin is safe, 100% safe. 2-3.
If you throw the 8-pin, and if you throw the 8-pin, you're still Ishanten technically. Going back to Rian Shanten because you can pawn.
Oh, we get the 7.
You can pawn, or you can chi 7, so 7-pin, or you can pawn 5-mon or 3-pin and be back into Tenpai.
You're right. That makes
sense.
Keeping
the Dora.
That makes sense. All right, I like the 8-pin discard. The 3-2 Tadashi is very concerning. Looks like a good weight of some sort. So I'm fine with playing it safe here with the 8-pin. Makes sense to me.
Thank you. I agree with that just because I think it's easy enough to get back into Tenpai and you have more value. I wouldn't say it's super easy, but the Riichi can't control what it drops, and if you did drop something you can pawn, you can just take it and then drop another 8-pin, and you're good to go.
We have a question in chat to explain why the 8-pin is 100% safe one more time. I think Caballo is a little bit still... If you could run over it one more time, Steve?
Sure, yeah. Since usually the danger of dealing suji to the Riichi tile is because the person is Riichi'd from a 5-7-9 shape. Those are strong and good to keep, but if you have too many of them and one fills up, you're stuck with it. And we're concerned that they're left with either 8-8 or a single 8 for that kind of weight, or 7-9 in their hand. And we can see all 4 9s, so they can't have 7-9. We can see all 4 8s, so they can't have any 8s. So literally the only way to be waiting on that 8-pin is if they have 6-7 and they're 3-10. And the only reason to do that is if you really, really wanted a Sanshoku. So there's zero reason for it, and there's absolutely no way that 8-pin deals in because of that.
Great, thanks, Steve. Also, we have a different opinion from Weibin Harmonics, who would deal the Dora. Weibin, I don't know if you want to come off mute and talk about your opinion you just mentioned in the chat.
I'll say that it's because looking at the discards, it looks like the other players seem to have a high utilization for center Pinzu tiles. So because you see 2 5-pin available, for that to be like the Mataki Suji, in other words, 5-pin, 5-pin, 4-pin shape, he has to have like one of the last 5 pins, and I find that kind of unlikely enough for me to just be able to risk it. Plus, I'm dealer, so I'm pretty much have to pay half his hand anyways if he sumos. But
I would counter that if you're going to deal the Dora, shouldn't you just Riichi, because somebody's going to deal into your 3 like right away?
Not necessarily, but I'm only doing that because I see the Manzu shape has some shape improvements that could bring it to a Ryanman, which can increase my chances. In the meantime, I think Dama should be probably a better choice if I had that many upgrades.
Fair. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to this. We can put it into a simulator and check the EV against dealing and folding, but that's a lot of work. Are we ready to move on?
Looks like those are all the questions, Steve.
Great, thank you. I think there's only a couple more left before we delve into other topics. So we can have someone called on for this one. This is a screen capture we saw earlier when we were counting all of those dead Suji. So keep in mind there are only 4 Suji live here.
All right, we got Blue again for this one. Blue, if you want to tackle it.
Hey, can you hear me this time? I'm a bit more in transit than I was last time.
You're just fine.
Okay. One second. Okay, just to make sure, because this looks very familiar, this is the same one I answered about the live Sujis last time?
Yes, this is the same screenshot, yes. Just so happened to know it again.
Let's see. I thought my Discord was briefly frozen somehow.
You're not frozen, we come back to the same picture.
Let's see. We only, as mentioned before, have 4 live Sujis left, which you are in second place by about 5,400 points, if I'm doing my math correctly in my head right now, against non-dealer Riichi. two door indicators, and you have to push a live west to do it, or a bad weight. Against West, who is reaching. That said, the weight can improve, and if it improves, you're going to be able to drop a safe tile to maintain it. And it's also getting close to the end, which means that you're going to run out of chances to maintain your tempo if you do fold here. You're a little over manga undirected, or a little over 9,000 points away from third place as well, which isn't that bad in most systems. I would probably push the West here, Dama, to maintain my Tenpai. If I do end up drawing, let's say, the 7 later, I'd be very happy. And probably Riichi at that point.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. This is not me in here, but in the game, the pair folded with the 6 mon at this point. So I think it's either way. You still have the dealer remaining, and I think that's probably the mindset. But I think it's important to remember that when there's so few live suji remaining, the chance of a shabo weight on like Yakuhai wind is higher as well.
Good point, yeah. And there are
Danger of that goes up. So and there's the con. So
yeah.
Steve, we have a question in the chat about what the UMA is here. In South 3, that should matter, right?
Now, this is a Riichi out game, so the UMA is big, 30-30-10, so it should matter, but positional play does not matter as much when you have a dealer left. If that's a fair answer. I think you can go multiple ways with this.
We also have another opinion from Pio about cutting the 3 9-mon instead of the 6-mon.
I think you cut the 6-mon because it's easier to get back into Tenpai with the floating 6 than holding 3 pairs. 6 is safe. It just came out.
You've convinced him. He says, fair enough.
You still have to push the Sha point, but you're not going. I mean, if you can draw a 5 or a 7 or something, and get a good weight instead of a bad weight.
One more thing as far as my analysis goes, doesn't quite fit in with the topic, but before I get into that, was the 4-pin the Riichi tile, and it was just called to make the Tsumogiri 3-so? Or...
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I have to open the game to tell you that one.
Okay. Okay, never mind then.
I counted the 3. I counted the 3... you reach, but... more of these before moving into other things.
Steve, there's also a personal question in the chat about whether you would Tsumogiri Riichi. Would you?
Usually don't. I'd have to go back and look at it. I might have Tsumogiri Riichi here if somebody conned me some Dora.
Yeah, just ignore me. It's barely on topic anyway, and that's...
No, Kevin is trolling me in the chat. That's what he's doing, so... I'm betting from this angle. I can't see my own hand, but I'm betting from this angle I threw the 4 and it got cheap. So anyway, this is the last one, and this is a very interesting one.
Oh no. Alright, time to get wrecked here. Oh cool, we got Chitoi, Itsu, or wait, no. No, we don't. We have a better
I'll give you a background. I'll give you a background on this one so we can kind of speed up it. We're going over an hour. There's only one tile left.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to decide as the dealer in East 2 if you want to push the tile to stay in Tenpai or not. And would you do it, and what would you push? Because if you want to fold, I'll just point this out right now that the 2-pin is going to be safe.
All right, I see.
After the Riichi.
So let's see. It's East 2, and I'm a dealer, so I'm like, well, I probably just want to push because I'll keep my dealership, and it's early on in the game. I don't see any Dora though on the board, which is kind of concerning. Is anyone is there any obvious flushes? Oh yeah, the 4 so might be dangerous against Toymen because looks like they might be flushing. Not a lot of middle mons there. And that doesn't go into his way. And 4 is also for the... Well, yep. Sorry?
So I'll jump in here and say that this is a 10-0 ladder game, so against the Riichi of last place, the other two basically they're probably just folding.
Okay.
You really don't need to worry about them.
Against the... So wait, so you're saying the person who's in Riichi of last place is...
The one to worry about. The other two kind of both threw an 8-so from out of hand only after the 8-so was dropped. It's kind of a...
Okay, I gotcha. My apologies.
Safety thing, but yeah, I don't want to cut anyone off or truncate the analysis here, but we're just going along.
I got you. Then yeah, if it's a 10-hole ladder game, it's still early. It feels bad, but I guess yeah, the 4 seems really dangerous here. The 4 so it's just too dangerous, and it could be in the same Ryeonman weight as Dora, so it seems even more likely. I mean, the reach was early, but that still seems like a lot to me. So I'm probably only looking at the 8-mon to drop. And is that it's still? Yeah, I don't see anything that makes me think that that's safe here. I don't see a 5-mon. Yeah, so both of those are live. There's a lot. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a lot of sujis that are probably dead here too. So it makes both of those 2 tiles seem pretty dangerous to me now that I've looked at it. So I'd probably just bail here. Ditch the Ryeon, even though I lose my dealership. Very sad.
That's an okay decision. I know it's not my game. It's not my game. The player just cut the 8-mon and was able to keep Tenpai there. It was safe, nice. But I don't remember what the weight was. I have the screenshot.
What are my outs, Alex?
But if you count the suji left, there's actually, it seems like you would think there'd be a lot of dead suji here, but there really are quite a few that are still alive. The entirety of middle Sozu is still alive, and the entirety of middle Manzu is still alive, so 4-7, 5-8 Mon are alive, and 2-5, 6, 4-7. So there are 7 suji left. You're basically banking. The Pinzu are dead, so that's pretty obvious looking at the board. But you're banking here on a like a 14% chance to deal in, cutting the 8. The 4 is in the middle. I mean, 1-4 is dead, so it's still half suji. So they're equivalent basically. But I would assume from the player that the thought process is I want to keep my deal, and I can see a lot of Manzu in my own hand, so it makes it less likely they need it.
That makes sense.
But I think folding would be okay too. It's a 10-0 game you don't want to deal in. But so this is kind of a hard one. So because you really have no chance to win the hand. You're just trying to keep your dealership and get the no 10 payment, or the Tenpai payment. Oh, there's another one. I think I put too many examples in here. Can we get one more person, please?
Uh-oh. I hit the pick.
We have
Okay, thank you, Point, for coming in. Point, you got it. Everyone, the bot is out of volunteers, so if you're feeling brave, go ahead and hop back in again. But for now, Point, you're up.
Wanted to hear thoughts on this one. I'm going to give a little bit of background on this one. It's not tenpai, obviously, and there's no draw because they've reached that 7 pin. Do you call? Do you draw? Do you want to try to push? Do you want to fold?
Is this Aka on or no?
Yes, it is.
Aka Ari. Okay, because if there weren't Aka, we have most of the value here with the Dora, and I would be more inclined to push. Let's see. We are in a fairly healthy second place, with first very far ahead. Last place has reached. Is our goal here just avoid last, or?
It's a ladder game, so you don't want to get last, but it's a much so ladder game. So if you get third, you're going to get a minus.
Okay. Generally in ladder games, that would push me a little bit more conservative. But with 3 Dora showing, I think I would definitely try to continue progressing this hand rather than full folding. If the decision is just like immediately what to do, we have a very safe pay to drop to continue seeing if we can progress this hand either into a reach or start calling for Tanya. I'm not sure if there's other insights you're looking for, but the immediate intuition is just push.
Okay. I agree. In the game, I called that 7. Not only do I break Ipatsu, but I'm looking at this hand and I'm seeing. I agree. I mean, you've gotten all the points, but I wanted to use this as an example because I was talking about pushing from Ishanten and pushing. This is even farther than that. But I'm looking at my hand and I see a pretty clear, safe path to Tenpai, which is why I chose to push it. I have to push the pay immediately. The pay because that's safe. The 3 so is suji, and I would be willing to try it if I got closer to Tenpai. And I'm willing to push either the 1 pin or the 3 pins Genbutsu, but I'm also willing to push the 1 pin because it's double 1 chance, meaning I can see 3 2s and 3 3s. So the only thing I'm never pushing is that 7. 7 mon in the end is not going anywhere. If I can't use that 7 mon, I'm folding. So that was kind of my idea, and I just wanted to include this one as an example of pushing from far from Tenpai. It's an option, and but it's because of the safety level of the tiles I'm dealing, very safe, and then I'm still reserving the option to back away. Okay, moving ahead, this is going to be a lot shorter. I only have a couple of examples, and I just wanted to talk about push fold against open hands because we've only been talking about Riichi so far. Even though there have been some open hands on our previous examples, there's always been a Riichi. So this kind of concept is very similar, but you have a lot more information at your disposal because you can figure out what Yaku they're going for. A lot of the time, you can track where the Dora are. This is harder in Akaari because there's 3 red 5s, but it's even harder when they're Riichi because they can get Uradora, and this Dora come out of nowhere. And you can also push a Yasume tile, and Yasume is like the cheap out, with the confidence that if a cheaper deal in if it's dangerous. So this is an example of if they had called for a Sanshoku, for example, of 6, 7, 8, and you have to push a 1 pin and it deals in, you know you're not going to deal into Tanyao because Tanyao's gone. So that's kind of just an idea. You can estimate the value better rather than just banking on an average and seeing what happens. And using this concept, you'll occasionally get hit by like 3 Dora hidden or Yakuhai triplet close when it looks like a Tanyao and you just deal in. But regardless, your push requirements are going to be lower when pushing against that open hand unless it's showing Mongan already. So if they had pulled the Yakuhai and it's Dora, then you have to be careful pushing, for example. So there's going to be, I think there's only 2 or 3 examples for open hands. So we'll just dive into this.
Brave Moku, you're up again.
Oh boy. Let me see. Okay, so we're just concerned about our Toyman being open right now? Or are we
go to the whole table, but it's South 4, so if we win, the game is over, and but Toyman is the
dealer. Yeah. So we're probably really just concerned about our dealer. We'd have to drop the 9 mon. We did just use it last turn. Does it matter when they called? Did they just call that Forza from us? Maybe.
No, I don't believe so. I think it was the turn before.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
Okay. We'd also have to reach here, but I guess we win, so that's good. The weight is also a good weight. But we have a lot of ways to bail. And since everyone else is behind, they're probably going to push as well. We can already see that our Kamichas looks like they're probably going to continue pushing. So I think what I would do here is hope that someone else deals in, since I've got a lot of safe tiles to bail on, perhaps. It's one option I'm thinking about. I don't necessarily like the idea of making myself really locked in this hand here, since I don't have a Yaku I can use. I can't really dama this except for sumo. And like, you know, if someone starts showing a lot of Dora or something. Depends on if... Yeah. So yeah, well, that's also true. If there was a call. So if the 9-mon is completely safe, I would drop it. If not, I'd probably start discarding the tones and just hope that someone else deals in to like, or that like someone deals into one of the other, to south or north, since they're probably going to push anyways. So it's like a 1/3 chance, even though, I mean, it's like a 2/3 chance type of deal maybe, even though east is probably more ahead in their hand. So I do. Is that?
That's fair. I think I would discuss this with earlier, and the kind of the concept that we agreed on, and I'll just explain it. We just agreed to smash the button to try to take the win. We have a big lead. The pawn of the 4 so is kind of like pointing towards, I don't have the Dora at all. I mean, they could. If they have the Dora, they have a lot of them. Because you wouldn't have pawned the 4 so if you're trying to use the Dora right next to it.
Oh, that's a good point.
So you're kind of banking on that, but I just hit the button.
All right.
The worst thing that can happen is even if I deal into a Mangan, I believe we just get a Renchan and I would go again.
Sounds good. Yeah, that does make sense.
Here's asking why we didn't
Thank
con. Because I don't con.
Don't feel the need to answer that, Steve.
I just looked at the phone. All right. Here's another one with a pretty big lead. This is not a ladder game. This is some other format.
Okay, so we're first, South 2. We have what seems to be, well, it's a Toi Toi Tanyao. I'm hoping it's Tanyao, actually, because if it's not, it would be kind of strange to keep a terminal. So we have a 9, so that seems pretty safe if we just wanna bail. And I think I would, because our weight doesn't seem that good. We want to keep our first place. There might be Dora. Oh, actually, the 8-mon is safe, so I would just discard that, keep Tenpai for now. Probably not call the Riichi. Just hope for Tsumo. Yeah, so yeah, I would drop the 8-mon for now, but not call Riichi.
Sorry, I think that's very safe. The weight is bad. We've definitely recognized that the 9 Shabo there's 3 tiles left. The interesting thing about the board, I see that if you were to Riichi, if anybody draws that last 9, they're going to cut it. Probably your toy men might not, but the other 2 are going to cut it. But I think the danger with Riichi here is not even You could deal into the dealer, but anything randomly could deal into the dealer because it's a naked weight. I'm more concerned about the last place flush in the Dora suit.
Yeah. Which would make sense to not call reach.
I think it's okay to remain safe. I think either way, you can go either way on this one because of your large lead.
Mm-hmm.
I think dealing into dealer is not something to worry about. I mean, we know the 8 is safe. I mean, we want to worry about it, but it's hard to defend against that. They probably have a Dora, if I'm guessing, but
I mean, I'm hoping for them to have a Dora.
I think it's Dora. I'm hoping it's at least Tan Yao, but
And then they're waiting in the north. Because why not?
they're free, Ted, if they're waiting on the north. Very sad.
Yeah. And
Waiting on
home
they can't be waiting on the south either. I'm looking for something they can wait on. There's no honors. Anyway, well, yeah, I agree. Thank you for your insights on that one. Any comments in chat about this? There's still one more example for open hands, and I've got more. I overdid it.
Wayman made the comment as well about the person to your left being close to busting, so letting them fight is another point that I think was really good that was brought up.
I can't tell you in this format whether Toby was on or off. So that's it's not my screenshot. So it was kind of provided to me when I asked some friends to provide their screenshots, and this was just an interesting one because you're fighting against a naked weight and a flush simultaneously with a bad weight from a huge lead. I think caution is okay.
Yeah, because Kevin also wanted to know if 3 consecutive triplets was on as well, so...
No. I can answer that pretty safely, no. Move ahead just to keep this going. Oh, this is not against an open hand. This is a bonus question. Or not even tenpai. I just want to know. I want somebody to get called and tell me what to do. My answer is cry.
Pio, you're up.
No, okay. Oh god. Oh, let's see. Yeah, crying is up there as an option for sure. They all declared Riichi like in a row. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible.
As Pio answers, we have a question in the chat, which I think is important. Is a board of Riichi on or not?
This is a ladder game, so yes.
I mean, we're not. Yeah, we're pretty far from Tenpai. Oh boy, I guess I just discard nine pin first.
Dealer though.
I know. Okay, like I'm thinking. It's like the best option. Maybe Toyman's waiting on Dora too. This is terrible. Like, I have no idea what I would do here. Let's see. Yeah.
Watching chat, they're trying to help you out.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, I guess I discard Dora, but then I can deal into the Toyman pods, which is like very sad. But Toyman did discard 2/5, so it had to be like a Kanchan, or they're like Tanki waiting on the Dora, like, because that's possible. Yeah, that is possible. I suppose. Not and Caballo, the 6-pin. So the dealer has literally discarded no Pinzu. So I'm a little less inclined to do that. Oh, and also are the gray? I'm assuming this doesn't show Tadashi and Tsumogiri because everything's white.
Nope, it doesn't.
Okay. Gross.
It's very weird they have not Tadashi to every single tile to get to this point.
I guess I discard the Dora and just pray at this point.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I got the other.
That's not what I did in the game, but I agree. we can move on from the bonus question, but the only reason I didn't eat the Dora is because of the fact that the toy men specifically had been on garbage weights for Dora like 4 times prior to this, and I had dealt into one of them already. So I got spooked and played by the toy men. And panicked and cut a 2-mon, which is the dumbest thing you can do here. I guess it's fine if one passes, you have 2 more, but it dealt into 2,600 from not the dealer. So that's a good outcome for me in this situation. So, all right, we're going to move on. The original topic, I got to go over a conclusion slide first, sorry. This is kind of a boiling down of the push-fold. We talked a lot about it. It's been kind of long already. About what to do, and this is boiling down into rules, but these always have exceptions, and you just need to use your brain. And remember that push-fold depends on who you're pushing against and how late in the round it is. As the dealer, you can push almost anything if you're already tenpai, and especially with a good weight. But as a non-dealer, you need 2,000 points or more to push with a good weight, 3,900 to push with a bad weight against a non-dealer. And against the dealer, you're going to mangan with a bad weight or 3,900 points with a good weight. So these are kind of just guidelines to use that really kind of boils down the Fukuchi suggestions on when you should push based on EV into a slightly more conservative format. It works, my opinion, works really well for ladder. So do we have any questions about this whole thing? Because my original topic for this talk was Sakigiri and Sashikomi, which we're still going to cover, as I wanted to keep that involved. It would have been way too short if I did just that. So instead we got something that's way too long.
We have one question here from Point. My question would be, does all this go out the window if you're Ishanten instead of Tenpai?
Yes, for the most part. I covered a little bit on when to push when you're Ishanten a few slides ago. I'm going to go all the way back to it quickly. But it's kind of, you have to either get lucky and remain safe to push Ishanten. You get into Tenpai safely, then you can just push. But if you have something that's like mangan that'll lead to a good weight and you have lots of tiles remaining, then you can push. If you're Ishanten and you don't have anything safe, you can push. Because like I said earlier, restricting yourself so you don't have the chance to win, trying to fold and then still dealing in is the worst thing you can do.
We have one other question here from Aaron Loud. When in the game do you start counting placement bonuses as points for your EV?
I think that starts probably around South 2. It depends on whether your dealer is still to come. That's when I would look at it. I mean, if you're South 1 dealer and you need to, there's still 3 hands left, so it's not as important even if your dealer comes and goes. But I think you want to make sure you position yourself to be able to move up in placement by South 2. And if anyone disagrees, please let me know. I don't think it should be any later than South 3, because South 3 is kind of the prep for all last.
And those are all your questions.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move to Sakigiri. And I'm going to try to move through this a little faster so we're not here forever. This is kind of a topic that I learned. I didn't learn about the concept recently, but I kind of learned how to apply it fairly recently, and it's helped me a lot, so I wanted to share it. And the Sakigiri immediately means to like discard a head, and it means you're throwing away a tile earlier than your efficiency would dictate because it might be dangerous later. And you're opting to keep a tile that's 100% safe, so you can push. And just shouldn't be surprised with all the math and stats that have been put into this. This has been factored into EV as well for your decision making. And we're going to be looking at keeping a safe tile with a pinfu shape versus keeping this Kanzen Ishanten, which is the perfect Ishanten. No matter how you get into Tenpai, you're guaranteed to have a 2-sided weight. So this graph here, I took from the book Gendai Mahjong Saishin Theory, which has been really helpful. I don't think there's an English translation for it, so it's a little bit more difficult to share. But this shows the pink line shows your expected value. Expected value is the y-axis. The x-axis is the number of turns that have passed. So the pink shows your expected value if you just keep 2 Ryanmen and a safe tile for a pinfu shape. The white is the perfect Ishanten where you're keeping an extra 2, 3, 7, or 8, and the black is keeping a perfect Ishanten with an extra 4, 5, or 6. And it's kind of important to note that keeping that extra tile around, since that middle tile can be like double musuji, that it's dangerous and the expected value dips below the safe tile after a certain number of turns when you only have the 1 hun. So I've got a couple questions here if there's anybody in the queue. If there's not, I will just cover them myself. Do we have anyone?
We have tips.
Is this thing on?
We can hear you. Thanks.
Nice. Okay. So this is about Sakigiri. Honestly, I don't see that much danger on the board. You just drew a north. I guess that's the real decision between safety and taking it down. Who's dealer?
You are the
Or
south.
south? Oh, it's in the pink.
Which
Gotcha.
is a little bit hard to see. I've taken it straight from the book. It was kind of an example problem after the chart.
I feel like Sakigiri here. I'd probably cut Formon.
And
You're getting to the end of the second row. Dealer is starting to push a little more dangerous tiles. And the value of your hand, like if you do keep the double the Shampon weight, it's a Riichi Nomi weight because the Dora is off in nowhere. It's west, I believe. Yeah, it's west.
yeah, it's west.
So, I mean, assuming there's no red, even if there were red 5s, you wouldn't be getting any from the Shampon weight. So yeah, I Sakigiri Formon here for safety. It's about getting to the time where people will be getting Tempai. Keep the north as a safe tile.
Right. Yeah, that is correct. That's what the book, the answer says to do. If we go back to the chart, it's turn 8, so the black line is below the pink line. So essentially, it's negative EV overall to keep that extra 4. So that's kind of the idea. And there's one more. We've got a volunteer. We can have another analysis on this, or we can have tips continue.
There's no one else in queue, so I vote tips continues.
All right. Man, now it just feels like I should go the other way just because it said so. But let me look at this. We're still south. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, nothing's changed. Except for it's a turn. It's the hand composition is slightly different, and it's a couple turns earlier.
I know the chart would say to just keep your Champonier. The one thing I like about the Champon is it has a terminal tile on it, which is kind of cool, and it is earlier. Almost feels like cheating, but I do want to say I would probably keep the 3-pin here and just cut north.
That's also correct. I'll just go back to the chart again, and they're at turn 6. They're pretty much on top of each other. Like actually, we're talking about the white line here. We have an extra 3, not an extra 4.
Right.
So it has better value on turn 6 to keep the wider path to Tenpai. Now see, these things track really close together, so it's pretty hard to make the decision. But to continue on, it's like kind of like the idea is don't die to Tenpai. So by turn 6 on that graph, that extra 4, 5, or 6 is a liability, and its EV drops below keeping the safe tile. And on turn 8, the outer tiles are similarly problematic. So if you cut that tile and keep a perfectly safe honor, or something that's genbutsu to everyone, it doesn't have to be an honor, it allows you to push anything if you draw a tenpai, even if there's a Riichi. So you can, in these examples, you get a pinfu shape, and you can push that safe tile, and you can choose to Riichi if you want to based on the score situation, and perhaps get a big payout. Or if you Dama and your weight is on the Genbutsu, then it's easy to win, and you can just steal the Riichi stick with zero risk at all and still fold if you need to. So it's helped me in ladder where you don't want to take as many risks, at least not with that kind of value. And that's where it's really helped me. I've scooped a lot of extra Riichi sticks by being just Dama Pinpu, because I cut that tile early when it would have dealt in later. And it's important to know that if you have Dora or any other Yaku, it increases the expected value over folding, but it doesn't really reduce the danger of the extra tiles. So you can, all those lines are still going to track together. They're just going to be better than folding. So you can still choose to get rid of it. But if you have like Dora 3 in hand, and you don't have a Pinhu, and you're going for Tanyao or something, you can keep the wider weight to Tenpai, and it's probably going to be better than just being safe at that point, because you're just going to push anything with a Mangan. Now, the very last topic, there's not a lot on this one. We're just going to kind of cover a couple screen captures, is Sashikomi, and that's just dealing in deliberately if you want to squash a big threat, move the dealership, end the game. This needs to be put with all the warning lights on it to do it sparingly. It can really screw you over if you think you're going to do it and you don't Sashikomi correctly. And you end up dealing into two people, or you end up whatever. But if you have a big lead, this can often mean just pushing, and then we don't care if the player gunning for the cheap hand wins. And also by extension, Sashikomi means that you're dealing in, but you can also, before you get to that point, help prop up some other player that you want to win the hand for whatever reason, but you just stop before you deal into them. So this is tricky, and I said all the caution lights on here. You need to do it very sparingly when it makes sense. So an example would be if your hand is crap, and you can feed like a Honitsu from someone, either like maybe the leader is going for Honitsu, and they're so far out of reach, it doesn't matter. You can feed them tiles to prop them up, and then if they sumo, make it the dealer's problem if they're close to you in score. That's one way to use this kind of technique. You know, you're not dealing in, you're just helping them out, and then you're making it the dealer's problem because if they sumo, they lose more than you. And the prime example here is if it's all-ass, you have a huge lead, and you don't care if you deal into anything, as long as it's not the all-ass dealer, because you don't want to Renchan, just want to end the game, just try to deal in. So I have a couple, I think there are 3 examples of like attempts to Sashikomi. It's really hard looking at somebody else, whether they tried to Sashikomi or not, or whether they just played normally and dealt in. So I am going to bring these up and we can discuss them. Do you have anyone in the list, Claire?
Yes, Blue has bravely volunteered himself once more.
We've got some dead time here. Do we have anyone to go through this, or should I just walk through them myself?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too, Blue.
Anyone hear anything? Because I haven't heard anybody speak in the last 30 seconds.
I think we all listened to Blue. I think we heard him.
I just didn't hear anything, so on my end.
Why don't you go ahead and give your read of it?
Okay. The whole my idea here is it's hard to tell whether this person was trying to deal in or not. They have a big lead. Don't want to deal into the dealer, obviously. They can deal into anybody else. Doesn't really matter. I mean, they have to deal into they have to have a Hanemon to overtake. And the last place is only getting out of last with a Baimon, but they can deal right into it and still win. So I think they were sort of trying to deal in here. I'm not. This is an example. It's really hard to tell, but they decided here. They dealt into me by cutting the 6, which deals into my Tanya only, and just ends the game. And I think the reason they were a little more deliberate about that is I don't see a reason why you wouldn't cut the 9 with this hand. You're going to cut any so. So that's it for that one. The other one is a little more. I can speak a little more too, because it was me dealing in instead.
Tips, you're up again.
Okay. So this one here, it's a little hard to say. Considering it's near the Dora, and the 4-mon was the most recent discard, this kind of looks like a deal into Toymen with a 5-mon. That's probably... I mean, the Chun is definitely a tile that a lot of people would want, but I would be wary of it dealing into the dealer as well. Yeah, I mean, so I think the main target here is Toymen. I mean, you could probably deal into Kamicha as well. They don't look super crazy. And for not Kamicha, Shimocha. And for them, the Chun looks better because they've dumped a lot of middle tiles early, and they called on a terminal. But I don't know. I personally would be wary of the Chun dealing into the dealer here as well.
Okay, why do you think that? Because I wasn't.
Just because the dealer could have anything at this point. I don't think the dealer would be off the table for being Tenpai on Chun. I guess they probably would have Riichi'd, to be fair, especially because Khan is on the table.
Between the Khan and being why do you want to be Adozuke on Chun when you can just Riichi and win on both sides of it?
Yeah.
So I just threw the Chun.
That's fair.
I dealt into the Toyman, Mangan, and I won the game. So if you disagree, I want to know more things about this because we don't have many opportunities to Sashikomi, so it's hard to do it properly.
Oh, that's a fair point. The dealer probably would have Riichi'd here.
What if he had enough door and just wanted to choose his target? If he accidentally bobs the wrong person, then that would put that player at risk for Toby and ending the game prematurely there, so he has to watch his hand after that.
I think that's... if I was the dealer, I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, yeah, somebody could deal into a Hanemon, I guess. If Toyman deals into a dealer Hanemon, they just bust, and then you don't win. But even if you put somebody close to busting, all you need to do is win the next hand anyway. I figure if this Chun deals in, I'm just getting to the dealer. I'm just getting second. It doesn't really matter. All right, there's one more, and then we'll wrap it up. Now this one, if somebody's available to be called on, this one I'm prefacing with the idea that second place is a win here. It's an elimination format. You just need to be in first or second.
Well, it's finally my time to be called on, despite my best efforts to not be. And with the caveat beforehand that I did review this presentation, so I have seen this picture before. So with, knowing that if you come in first or second, it literally doesn't matter. Like, you're going to go into the next game and it's all, like, reset anyways. Like, you just need to be first or second. And those other peeps are pretty far behind you. I think it's okay to, like, deal into some, like, little thing and just not let the dealer get a repeat. Like, that's, like, priority here, right? And we've got, that black-haired girl with the tile to our right is calling, like, two-sided weights, like, even so early. Like, looks like they're just, like, trying to get this over with as quickly as possible to also come in first and second. So I feel like this is an opportunity to partner up with them because, and help their hand get together. So I feel like dropping some tasty middle tiles for them is like, pretty warranted here. If I had to pick what tasty middle tiles to drop, I think that the Pinzu tiles we have are really tasty. I don't know if that's, like, too aggressively tasty, but then there's, like, I don't know, there's also Sanzo too, but I think I might drop some of my tasty Pinzu tiles here.
That's pretty much right. This, to give the full story, this last screenshot is from the Cat Food Bowl Season 0 tournament. He, been trying to deal into me for most of the game, and I didn't really, after we got into the score situation, I didn't really catch on until South 4, which I got, like, yelled at for afterward, which was kind of funny, but he tried to deal in, and it makes sense from his perspective to try this, especially because he's in first. It doesn't matter if he dips into second, but by just gutting his hand out, he can just fold if something goes wrong. I'm the one that has to worry because I'm the one that's going to get overtaken and dropped into third if something really goes awry here. So that's exactly what happened. He started with the 4-pin. I cheated it, but I took, like, 6 seconds to decide what I wanted to chi, which in a way in this kind of format is almost table talk of, like, I have more blocks than pin. So he cut the 5, I cheated that, then he dealt in with the 6 mon. So it was over with by, like, turn 7. I think he missed 1 trying to deal in and then dealt in. So this was kind of like, you can have a partnership at the table when you only have to be in first or second, when first is not all the end-all be-all. So that wraps it all up. I know this has been pretty long. We've gone a little over 100 minutes talking about these topics. I know they're very dense, and I'd be glad to answer any final questions that you might have.
All right, Steve. I see only clapping so far in the chat, so people, of course, feel free to continue, chatting or asking questions as you will. But with that being said, why don't we conclude this lecture here? And Steve, thank you so much for coming and teaching us all content. If anyone else here has any additional questions for Steve, you can feel free to reach out to him on Discord, ping him anywhere, and otherwise just go ahead and int whatever tiles you like and blame him because you listened to this lecture. His DMs are also open for that. Our final strategy lecture of the season is actually coming up. The last one is going to be next Wednesday, and it's going to be continuing on defensive play with Zach W. of Seattle. And following that, we're actually going to be taking a break. This is the end of our season while we rest and, get all these online and recuperate. Maybe more coming up later, like maybe in the fall. We also need to find out what's going to happen with clinics and everyone being online or offline. But for the time being, there's still one more coming up next Wednesday. We hope to see you all there, and good luck with your Mahjong.